What's going on, Snaps World? Aaron Murray here. Appreciate y'all jumping on a Monday afternoon, a little bit later than normal. Usually going at 1 p.m. Eastern. I know it's right around 2:30 p.m. Eastern right now. T-Bob is on vacation in Mexico. He was going to do the show from Mexico today and tomorrow, but then he decided to go golfing once again. So T-Bob is on the course, chugging a couple beers. I'm going to be joined by Jayden Palmer, a quarterback guru and former NFL quarterback. We're going to be breaking down the top quarterbacks heading into the NFL draft. He's working with a couple of them right now. We're going to get his thoughts on them and obviously dive deep into the most important position in the NFL, especially in the draft. Once again, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We hope everyone had a safe and enjoyable Easter with hopefully not as much candy as I consume, because I am definitely on a sugar down right now after all that I consumed stealing my son's candy after he dominated the Easter egg hunt against his little cousin. So someone's got to chug a beer for this delay, goes Bo Kennedy. I did my one beer. I did. That's it. You know, T-Bob's on the course right now. I'm sure he's 4, 5, 6 beers deep, looking for his ball somewhere in the woods. So we'll see. Hopefully he's playing well. His swing looks actually pretty good. I'm not going to lie. T-Bob, for a big guy, has actually a pretty good swing. It's the big calves. He's like Phil Mickelson. Got them big old calves. Before Jordan jumps in, he's about to jump in any minute now. Let's just kind of run through who the top quarterbacks in the NFL draft are going to be. Obviously, Caleb Williams is going to be one. We talked a little bit last week about Jayden versus Drake Maye. Definitely going to get Jordan's thoughts on that. And then kind of rounding up the next couple, J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., and our sleeper, Spencer Rattler, as well. So without further ado, let's bring him in. Jayden Palmer.
Is that all right?
What's up, brother?
What's up, man? How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm cruising. Sorry, I just got off the field. I got some guys in town.
Oh, no problem. I know you're staying busy. Jordan is QB Summit, so you can follow him on all the social medias. QB Summit at Jayden Palmer. I see Lululemon Ambassador, which I'm very jealous of. I need to figure out a way to get onto that. And does a great job with what's the show too? The QB Room as well. That's the QB Room. So make sure you can follow all those socials and check him out. And does probably, I think, the go-to guy for all quarterbacks from Pee-wee to high school to college to guys in the NFL. He's still training right now. There's a bunch of guys like Joe Burrow he works with in the offseason. So I know you're a busy man, and once again, appreciate you taking some time to break down some quarterbacks with me as we're about a month away from the NFL draft. I want to get to who are you working with right now? Kind of give us a little sneak peek of what your day-to-day is with some of these guys.
Yeah, so really just kind of wrap draft training. I had my pro days last week. Spencer Sanders was at Ole Miss. Blake Stenstrom at Princeton, a kid I've known since he was little. His dad was a former NFL quarterback. And then Joe Milton at Tennessee. So kind of wrap that up, even though I'm going to be on the phone a lot, talking to teams, talking to the guys as they have their 30 visits and all that. But and then, February, depending on who they are and how their season finished, some vets start training. So and then Hooker, because he was coming off of a knee and kind of redshirted last year, started training earlier. So he was out here for a month, really before I had any other vets start. And then guys like Sam Darnold, who were playing all the way into the Super Bowl, started just a couple weeks ago. So got a bunch of vets that are out here coming and going. Some of them kind of make this home. Sam Darnold lives here. Josh Allen lives here. Kyle Allen lives here. And then some of the vets who are getting back into training right now, the Desmond Ritters and the Joe Burrows. He's got a unique deal with the surgery onto his wrist. They'll kind of be starting. And then college, I had some guys out before spring ball started. So Jalen Milroe was out here. Kyle McCord was out here. Giovanni McCoy, who's a name to watch, who just went to Oregon State from Idaho after being the best player in 1AA. He was just out here on spring break. And then I think this week, next week, the following week, you kind of get those guys that are on spring break. Everybody in spring ball is different. Some people have like 2 practices and then they go on spring break. Some people put spring break in the middle. Some people start early or start late. So we'll have a lot of college guys here the next few weeks and a lot of vets as well. So simultaneously, I run the Summit Tour. I've had one stop in Orange County. This weekend, I'm in Salt Lake City. And that's middle school, high school quarterbacks. Really the only thing I do with young guys is that Summit Tour. I don't really privates or or have like weekly, Wednesday nights or Saturday morning training sessions. And then I consult for some colleges. Can't say the names, but the school hires me to come in and curate the development across three different departments, where you're talking about the PT staff, the strength staff, and then whoever's got the clicker in their hand coaching the quarterbacks. Believe it or not, none of those departments are ever synced and coordinated and not school plan. You know that from playing a lot of football. So we kind of lifted up the hood, and I just did my 60th different school, a pro day, and one way or another connected to all 32 teams. And so it's not an indictment on one person or one coach. That is standard operating procedure to have all of those silos, essentially, or all of those departments operating in a silo. And so coming in and consulting with schools and NFL teams on how to build it.
Whenever you need to bring that QB summit out to Atlanta, just let me know. We'd love to team up. We can have some fun doing that. So
coming out in June, I believe it's in June. I'm coming to Atlanta.
Well, let me know, baby. Come on. We'll have some fun. Before we get into the NFL guys, and I definitely want to talk about Joe Milton a little bit. Jalen Milroe, you brought him up, and obviously he's going to be in a brand new offense. We saw what Michael Penix Jr., the success he had at Washington. I know there's a lot of people concerned, can Milroe play in a different type of offense? He's an incredible athlete, throws a beautiful deep ball, but what's he look like, from the 5 to 20, the 5 to 25 yards? Can he make all those throws? Can he make that big jump from year 1 to year 2 with the new terminology, with the new concepts? What are some things that you've seen from him, and just maybe his excitement to be with a new system, to be with some new coaches as he heads into his second season?
Well, I'm just getting to know him. I spent a couple of days with him. He was a guest on my podcast. Is how we met, actually. And great energy. You pick up on the humility, which guys like you and I value humility, even on the guys that are super confident and think they're the best in the world, which if you're going to be one of the best in the world, you have to think that you are. But had all the humility that you'd want to see in somebody who's had success and who's made some money and been on big stages. And that humility evaporates for a lot of young players, unfortunately. And it hasn't with him. And so it takes a level of humility to be able to buy into a new program. It takes a level of humility to buy into making mechanical changes, if you want to call it that. For me, the thing that I look for, I score athleticism a little bit differently. Ironically, the combine, so let's say, right, or any of the other guys I've had for the combine, you're getting them better at these traditional combine things like run a faster 40, jump higher, jump farther, go over there and come back, and then go back over there again quicker, right? The Eldro, whatever. And so I'm not the person, I have a staff that trains that, but that's how we score an athlete, right? If somebody runs a 4.2, you say he's athletic. If somebody runs a 5.2, he's unathletic, right? That's not really how I look at it for what I do for a living. I would measure athleticism very differently. And the reason, or the way that I measure it, is how quickly can you take an old movement pattern that you've been doing for a long time and replace it with a new one. And I've had guys that run 4.4 and it takes forever. Yeah. And I've had guys that run 5 flat and it happens like that. So when I look at it through that lens, Joe Burrow's actually made one of the most athletic dudes I've ever trained. And I don't care what his 40 is or isn't, because we can talk about something and then it happens in game tape. Talk about it on Tuesday and then it shows up on Sunday. That's athleticism to me. And so what I think of Jaylen is world-class athlete from how all the ways we'd measure it: jump far, run fast, right? And I don't know that I'm going to help him a whole lot in those areas. But I was able to spend a couple days with him and realize that, good, he's the other type of athleticism too, because they don't necessarily go hand in hand. It's actually more about like mind-body connection than it talent or explosiveness. And so his ability to feel what he's doing, try something different, and then build muscle memory really quickly, that just changes the trajectory arrow as far as I'm concerned.
Well, you'd hate my golf swing. You'd hate my golf swing then, Jordan, because like I have my golf coach. It takes me like 4 or 5 lessons to kind of tweak one thing in my golf swing. It's a pain in the ass. So I guess according to you, I'm not a damn good athlete. It's a little depressing.
You must not be.
No, I know. I guess not.
Okay, so,
or I'm just old. Or I'm just old and my body doesn't, go as fast as I used to, 10 years ago.
Totally. Yeah. But I love working with guys that are really good at golf or really good shooters in basketball because they've connected to a movement pattern and then been able to repeat that movement pattern over and over and over again. There's a guy I'm working with out of UCLA right now, Ethan Garbers, who's like a plus handicap, and he's a college quarterback, so he didn't play that much. And he goes to school at UCLA. There's not good golf in LA. There's like 3 places you can play, and they're all expensive country clubs. So it's not that he's playing as much as other +1 handicaps, but it's made sense to him, and so he can go out to whatever and go 71. And so all that tells me is on the quarterback side of things, this is going to go really quickly, and I don't really care what it is.
Well, I want to ask you this because I've seen you go to like a golf facility and use the force plates, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I know you've done a lot of that. And kind of as I've tried to build myself as a better golfer, I think of the movements from because a lot of people I go work with, like, well, you're a quarterback, so you should be able to do this or this or this, really well. And the more I see kind of that ground force reaction when it comes to golf, it does make me think of shooting a basketball, being able to use the ground to elevate up to shoot. Same thing with football, being able to create that disassociation and get that foot down to create the force to then accelerate the throw of the football. How much are the similarities with all the sports, would you say, when you do look at the ground force reactions?
Well, I'm sitting in front of my golf simulator in my office, so we hit balls around here. You like the background I put on for you?
I love it. I love it.
And so there's a lot of similarities, but let's break it down into 2 elements. So one, when I'm getting ready to address the golf ball, I'm getting my feet wherever I want them. I'm going to stand however I stand. I'm going to get myself all situated. To some extent, we all have that friend who takes forever, but like not a shot clock out here, right? So I can do whatever I got to do to get set, right? So there's once I get my feet set, let's say from a quarterback, we would call that the pre-pass position, right? So there's the things you want to work on there, your throwing mechanics column or your golf swing mechanics. And yes, there's a ton of correlation between what you want to do on both. For example, I'm not just trying to swing my hips open. That Dak dance video, I think, ruined throwing mechanics for a lot of kids. Saw that and just try to copy it. It's not about getting my hips open. It's how I get them open. How do I apply force through my back foot to be able to create leverage, to be able to rotate my hips in the direction I want to go? And then when I actually golf, when I open up my hip or when I'm stepping and throwing, I actually have to come to a collision on that front hip. It has to stop, and force has to be front foot. And that's the part that nobody talks about. Force has to be applied into that front foot so that I'm not swinging my front hip open. I'm driving my back hip through, and I've just created a fulcrum on that front hip. Get kind of nerdy. I can go way down here. But the bigger conversation, what I spend most of my time working with quarterbacks on is, are you actually getting back to that pre-pass position? Because I go to the Elite 11. Every year I do this. I walk around with an iPad, and I tell the guy, it doesn't even matter who it is, hey, Aaron, step and throw at your target. And I video you from the side. And then I go, okay, go quick 3 and throw to your target. And it's just a kid they're 15 yards away. And I hit pause right before I video it, and then I go slow-mo, and I hit pause right before they go to throw. And it doesn't look anything like when they just stood there and stepped in through. The majority of mechanical issues that elite quarterbacks have stem from a movement that preceded the throw. So you overstrided on that last ball and threw it in the dirt on a comeback. I argue you put yourself in a position where the only thing you could do was overstride to get out of it. Basically, hips were locked, landing in triple extension, not able to actually internally rotate that hip, whatever it is. So I spend probably most of my time talking about the movement. And if you came and watched one of my throwing sessions today, I had Sam Darnold out there for 2 hours. We threw the last 45 minutes. Then an hour and 15-minute, no ball, no cleats, moving on turf. And I'm not pro agility or speed work. I don't do that. How do we develop the range of motion in my hips, getting the ankle mobility to be able to support the under center, ride 434, ride 40-35, bob pass, throwing a strike out of it that we're going to actually work on for 45 minutes. And that's the part that nobody else does.
No. Which I love the fact that you brought the whole DAC thing, because it's so true. I mean, you're not just trying to, same with golf, like you're not trying to just rip your hips open. You have to use the ground properly to drive to get the hips to open. It's not just a turning effect, because then everything just gets kind of thrown up from the top and it just gets ugly from there. So I'm excited, man. For real. In Atlanta, let me know. I would love to come out there, help, and definitely watch when you're out here this summer. Let's get into these quarterbacks, though. You were working with one of my, I don't know if I'd use the word sleeper, but a guy that I had an opportunity to cover a couple of times in Tennessee. see his arm strength in Joe Milton, see the athleticism. A guy, the ball just naturally pops off more than maybe anyone I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, I saw him throw a 60-yard touchdown with the ball, maybe went 10 yards in the air. Unbelievable freak of an athlete, a guy that I would take definitely a flyer on somewhere third, fourth round and just say, you know what, big kid, great athleticism. Let's see what he can do. Your thoughts working with him? How much has he grown since the guy that just wants to put a hole in the wall to maybe what you try to improve in his game to maybe get him or even earlier in the NFL draft?
Yeah, I think with a lot of, talented guys, whether it's high school or college, you guys who are great throwers, and then they need to learn how to become a great passer, and then they need to learn how to become a great quarterback, right? Where an element of the game is passing, right? And so he was way further down. He's been, I think, a really, really good passer since I've been paying attention to him the last few years. You go back to the beginning of the story. I mean, he was 17 at Michigan. He was the youngest guy there. And where he grew up in Michigan, Ann Arbor, Michigan, are two very different settings. And then they were really musical chairs at quarterback. You're talking about, Shea Patterson was there and Joe was there. And then Cade McNamara inserted in before the J.J. McCarthy run. And so, it was a weird time at Michigan, right? They weren't going 15-0 during that period. And then, in the competition, Hendon Hooker emerges. And then we come to find out Hendon Hooker is a really good player. He should have won the Heisman. Arguably could have won the Heisman if he didn't tear his knee up. And so it's not like he got beat out by a bad guy. He got beat out by a guy who's also a client of mine that I think is going to start a lot of games in the NFL and be a player for a long time. And then this last year, there was some ups and downs, and obviously some incredible plays on tape. And it's also a system that's a little different. It doesn't, if you're in and you watch Tennessee, you don't see a lot transfer. I'll argue more transfers than a rate casual fan would say. But I think seeing his buy-in and his attention to detail and his work ethic, he's the guy that, again, we do a lot of stuff on the movement side of things. He's just always, you look over there and you see him across the field, and he's like, just kind of with no ball, just continuing to build on whatever it is that we're working on. And so it's just always on his mind. He's always thinking about it. He's always getting better. And that was awesome to see. Makes a guy like me become a fan really quickly. Now, I don't know what round he's going to go, and I think there's a chance he goes higher than those two. Because flip it over here, like on the draft, I'm not comparing him to players in the NFL right now. I'll just say I've had a lot of guys come through this draft program. A couple guys go number one. A lot of guys go in the first round. He's definitely the most talented I've seen at this stage.
Yep.
And I've also backed up my brother, who's like top 5, definitely top 10 all-time arm. I backed up Blaine Gabbert, who throws it way better than the casual fan realizes. And so I was a college counselor at the Elite 11 when Matty Stafford was one of the high school kids and Timmy Tebow. And so I've been around kind of all the arms, and I'm totally comfortable saying that Joe's probably as talented of a thrower at this stage of his career as I've ever seen. We actually went down to the place you mentioned. It's Titleist Performance Institute, TPI. It's not their business headquarters. It's essentially their lab. They design golf balls there. If you're a golfer on tour and you play Titleist, which is most of them, you've been there a lot. They have contracts with, I think, every baseball team. So all the best hitters and pitchers have gone there. And we looked at it, and not the guy, Greg, who we do it with, is really the godfather of all of this rotational. So all the stuff you've heard with, and, whether it's the stuff and rotational train, Greg is the one who is like the godfather of all of it. He's just in the golf industry. And I have a partnership with Titleist. We get on there a lot. And Greg doesn't really watch football. He didn't know who Joe Milton is. He doesn't care. And he goes, hey, let's just pull up the data right here. The only thing I can compare his sequence to, we're not talking about spots and videos. We're talking about bar graphs, right? The only thing I can compare it to is Mike Trout's swing, which high praise when you talk about sequencing. So yes, he has raw athleticism and talent, but his sequence, and it wasn't like that to Mike, who works with me, and up to our credit as well. It was not like that on the first assessment, but on the end, right before he left, it was essentially the most efficient. And to get nerdy for a second, we really look at 4 pillars. So one, there's angular velocity of the pelvis, so your hips. Your hips open. Second is angular velocity of your trunk. Okay, so it goes hips, trunk. Third, extension. Fourth is internal shoulder rotation. So we don't flick it. We don't snap our wrist off. What we actually do is get to elbow extension and internal shoulder rotation and the sequence at which that happens. His sequence is essentially as efficient as it gets.
Damn.
And he's 6'5", 238 and ran 4.55.
Yeah, and could throw a 70-yard bomb while the ball's in the air, do a backflip.
Well, how about
this? Is super crazy.
All the clips went viral of him. You know, and I said, like, at his pro day, I'm like, all right, we're going to take the driver out and do the thing that never happens, but we got to do it because it's a pro day. So he drops back, he runs over here. Oh, never mind, comes over here. And basically, I have the guy on the backside run a 10-yard stop, count to 1,001, and then take off to the back pylon 60%. And then by the time we set it up, we're going to throw as high and far as we can. And it usually times out perfectly where the guy extends. I don't throw any fades on pro days. Ever since Jameis Winston threw somebody out of bounds and they flipped over all the media equipment, I've never thrown a. We throw posts because we can kind of keep them on. Yeah, that thing went like 80 something. But the most impressive throw, that was after 60 throws, by the way. The most impressive throw is we throw a Dino post. So picture double post. Yeah, kind of like 5, maybe the 30. And you're going to go like 12 yards. You're going to widen for 3, keep your speed. Bit thin, right? Almost like 5 yards outside the upright. I throw a cone in the back of the end zone. I back Joe up to the 40. So that's 40 plus 5 for being in gun. Complete 8 yards deep. So it's 53. And it just went like this.
Yeah, doesn't even get off the ground, it feels like.
A little high. And I won't say who, but I had 2 NFL quarterback coaches I said, stand right here on this one. And I kind of stood in between both of them. And then I just the expletives coming out of their mouths. I'm like, have you seen anybody do that? And they both look at me and go, never seen anybody do that before.
I said, man, I've had a couple of his games and like in the pregame warm up and then just cover, you can even see from the booth, some of the throws he would make down the field. You're like, my God, like I've never seen someone throw the football like that. And it just comes out so effortless. The body does work in an amazing way. So I'm interested to see who does take a chance at him somewhere in the mid rounds and takes a guy that can, is that size, that's played a decent amount of football in the SEC and can throw it the way he throws and is just that athletic. Will be interesting to see. All right. I don't think we need to talk a lot about one. I just want to get your just overall thoughts on things that maybe you don't like. I know all the things that we like about Caleb, good size, decent size, the athletic, the creativity, the ability to move the arm angles. I mean, everything is he's really special. I don't know how much you've worked with him or seen him, but like, what are some things that maybe would concern an NFL scout or team that maybe they wake up on draft day and say, never mind, Chicago Bears, we don't want him at 1, which I don't anticipate happening. But what are some things that he could improve on heading into his rookie year?
Yeah, the way I talk about these guys is thinking about like, what do I think they need to progress in to be able to transfer what they did in college to the NFL, and then how I think they can do it, right? And so I just only talk about knocks and holes. And so what I would say is there's plays on tape where he's doing something absolutely incredible. But there is the hitch right there, or there is the flat right there, or the slants open. And so I don't like, unless I'm their quarterback coach on their team, which I'm not for anybody, saying like, how come you didn't throw it to him? Right? Because I don't know what else. I have too much respect for the quarterback coach in the room, and the coordinator, right? And so it's not something where I go, there's the hitch is open on tape and he's doing too much. That doesn't translate to the NFL. It's like, no, that will get coached into him. And maybe it wasn't as much of a point of emphasis before, and that's totally fine. So there would be one area where, I reference, I was texting with Mahomes, it was like 2 years ago in the middle of the season, something about a good game, something like that. And he had thrown a couple touchdowns or a couple big plays that game, but they were like a flat route. It was like a stick route. And his point in the text was, dude, it's crazy once you get into the league this long, like how many easy completions there are to take.
Yeah.
So you watch Patrick Mahomes and think that he's trying to do all this stuff when really what they're trying to do is like do all this stuff to like throw the flat route, to create high percentage shots. It's like when I was in college, my roommate in college at UTEP, he was like a diehard Spurs fan, and they were rolling at that time. They were winning like every, and I just couldn't get into it. It was like so many layups. It was so many bank shots from 4 feet. But his point was, this is beautiful basketball because they're creating high percentage shots. And then everyone else in the league, this is Iverson and Kobe's like creating themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that's a part of his game that I think will improve. And I don't know how much that's him or Lincoln or whatever. It's not a knock. It's just so much of what you do. You know this. You were what were you, 4 or 5 star?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. 4 or 5, whatever. Yeah.
So when you're coming out, how do you become a 4 or 5 star quarterback? How do you get invited?
Make big plays. Make big plays.
Playmaker.
Make big plays, baby.
How do you win the Heisman Trophy?
Make big plays.
Playmaker. How do you have success in the NFL? Put the ball in play.
Yep. Well, I learned that. I learned that lesson the hard way. I remember heading into my 3rd year with Kansas City. This was preseason, and it was I'm in the quarterback battle, trying to make the roster. And in my head, before every preseason game, I'm thinking like, yeah, I'm gonna go, 15 of 18 for 230 and 3 touchdowns. I'm gonna throw this and this and this. And in practice, I was great, man. Like practice was my best off season. The OTAs, the fall camp, all that, man. I'm just dealing. I get to the game and I'm trying to, hit home runs. And I remember, Coach Reed sat me down when I got cut, and he's like, Aaron, if you just would have ran the offense like you did in practice and stopped trying to make all these incredible plays in the game, you'd still be on the team. He said, you didn't do that. And you were reckless with the football. You're trying to hit home runs when all I needed you to do was just hit singles like you did in practice. And it was a really hard lesson, obviously, learned. But, yeah, you're trying to make the roster. You're trying to do this. You're trying to do that. And all you're thinking in your head is, I got to throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. And you can get there by just taking the simple flat route, 5-yard pass turns into a 15-yard run, easy stuff like that. So I think he can. I think he's a smart enough quarterback from what I've heard. He's obviously super athletic. And
what I've spent a lot of time with him. What I would say about Caleb, if he finds out something that he can get better at and it's going to make a big difference, he's going to get better at it real quick.
Mm-hmm. I like him. All right. Your next one. Are you on team Jayden or are you team Drake for 2?
It just depends. I think it depends on what the plan is with them. I think both of them are going to be great pros. So this isn't a knock on Drake. I think Jayden's the first pick in a lot of other drafts.
Yeah.
And it happens to be the Caleb Williams year, not to go in 2nd or 3rd's a failure. I've seen both of them since they were little, but I just think so much of it for Jayden transfers right away. I've seen him as a true freshman beat Justin Herbert at the end of the season when Oregon was rolling and all they had to do was beat a crappy ASU team. And then Jayden was like, nah, as a young guy. And then watching this really similar setup to what happened with Burrow,
Yeah.
You go the first year, it's up and down. It's just okay. And then the second year it explodes. I think that LSU was 7-4 Joe's junior year, and maybe 8-4. And so I think it was something similar. And he's got great receivers he's throwing to. I'm not trying to hear that. Ball placement's incredible, making plays. And I think Jayden as a runner translates. I think what he did in the SEC. I've had guys
as long as he just doesn't stop at impact. I mean, the thing that drives me crazy. He would kind of get to impact and just stop and almost give himself up. And then we saw some of the most violent hits I've seen the quarterback take throughout the season. Yeah. So I think the running, 100%, but he's just got to take care of himself a little better.
First year or two in the NFL, every time Josh Allen broke the pocket and ran to the right, it was either going to be a touchdown, a completion, or an incompletion. But he was going to end up landing on his right shoulder every time. So and you can't practice that in drills. So it's instincts, it's all that. It's like learning how to slide. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I was with Carson his rookie year in Philly. The same thing. Yeah, you got to learn. With Carson and Philly his rookie year. I mean, he had to learn to protect himself, and that was his big downfall, was inability at times to protect his body, which is hard for guys that are that size. Though I feel like Jayden, obviously good size with height wise, 6'3", 6'4", but Josh and Carson have more of that physicality. 240, 250. Where their whole life they've actually have been able to run people over. Like I don't know if Jayden's ever been to a point where he's been able to run someone over. So. But I'm with you. I think Jayden too, just the athleticism is absolutely incredible. A guy that I'm not go ahead.
Go Drake it too. I mean, reminds me a lot of Phillip Rivers, just all ball, great dude, great personality, great energy, always competing, good in a bunch of sports. And so if he goes at 2, that makes a ton of sense to me too. Because you're getting all of those things. I just think with Jayden being in 2 different systems, playing in the SEC, I don't think this whole draft should be about who can play better faster. But unfortunately, that's the way that it is with the patience of the fan base and the contracts set up the way they are with front office.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. The guy that I want to hit on with you obviously being out there on the West Coast, I'm a little bit hesitant on. Like I think I've seen enough of JJ McCarthy to think that okay, I like the tools that JJ has. I can understand why someone will take a chance on it maybe in the first round, even though he wasn't asked to do a lot at Michigan. But a guy that like I like Bo Nix. I've liked Bo Nix, since his freshman year at Auburn. It's hard for me to sit down and say I think Bo Nix is a first round quarterback. I think he's more of a mid-second to early third-round guy. What are your thoughts? Am I completely off target on this one? Is he a bona fide first-rounder in your mind?
I don't really know. I think how you score him, it's based off that team's need and what role you're asking that player to play. And if you're asking him to play right away, and we're a quarterback on a rookie contract away. Mm-hmm. I think he's played so much ball. He's so mature. He's off the field, on the field, all of it. You're going to get somebody who can step right in and do that. From a skill set standpoint, one thing that didn't show up a lot on tape at Oregon, because they got rid of it so quick, is you didn't get a chance to see him run around and create as much, which he can totally do. It just didn't happening because I ended up on offense, and him and Penix both were throwing number 1 and 2 so much. And getting rid of it so quickly that there wasn't a need. They didn't ask him to take 5 and 2 hitches and then create. But he will need to do that in the NFL, and I think that's a part of his game. We didn't see a lot that will show up in the NFL as a good thing. And so, I think if somebody takes him in that first round, they know exactly what they're getting, right? Yeah. Like you know exactly what you're getting because he's played more football than anybody in college, right? Be any surprises. Plus, he's so consistent as a person. He's married. He's that you know exactly what you're getting. On JJ, the part where we don't know what we're getting, and what I'm about to say is not actually his fault, right?
Yeah,
this is
not at all.
But it's by far and away my biggest concern. Is this when you are on the sideline before the game, right? And Harbaugh comes over and hits him on the shoulders, right? And you're rushing for 250 yards today. It's just different than playing quarterback in the NFL.
Yep.
I don't care if you're the Baltimore Ravens. You don't know that the run game is going to work today. Any point in the first quarter, you could have to abandon it. And so it's a handicap. And it's not his fault they ran the piss out of him. And he's got a couple great backs and a great scheme and great design. And I'm sure he was making all sorts of checks to get them in a better run play. He was contributing to that. His threat as a runner contributes to that. All positive things. That would just be my thing where I go, I can't, his pro day tape's not going to answer that. Yeah. The interview process isn't going to answer that. So that's where the risk is. And he's not the first guy that we've set out where they've had an unbelievable running game. But, I don't think it's fair to say that he didn't throw the ball in the second half versus Penn State because they didn't want him to lose. Like,
they didn't need to.
They didn't need to.
No.
And you got an interim head coach and all the stuff going on then. So it's not an indictment on him, but if as an evaluator, as a GM betting my job on it, that's the one where there's risk associated with that determination.
But when it comes to just pure talent, like I remember watching JJ early on in the season, and I would text, obviously T-Bob, who I co-host the show with, we talk about it. I talk with Jake Butt, former tight end at Michigan. I'd be like, man, where did this arm come from? Because I remember seeing it a year ago. Then you look at some of the throws he made in the first 4 games of the season, and it was a guy that was throwing the deep out on time in rhythm with a lot of juice. The ball was kind of, not dying at the end of it. I was like, man, I didn't realize he had that type of arm strength and accuracy when he does get the opportunity. But is that enough though to say just talent, just pure talent wise? Is he a first round talent? Take away the mental, not being asked to do a lot, but just purely drop back, throwing it, arm strength, athleticism. Does that belong in the first round?
Yeah, I think he can absolutely spin it. He's his type of mobility. He gets to full speed quickly. Not everybody who's fast and runs a fast 40 gets to full speed. I think of Vince Young, who's one of my all-time favorite players that I've ever watched in college. I think it was because he didn't get to full speed as quickly, it didn't translate. Those big runs didn't translate the change of direction. Where I think JJ's does. from a velocity, he can spin it. He's thinner, but a lot of these guys are too. Everybody's 225. And so that doesn't concern me. So from a talent perspective, yeah. And then whether it's the run game, defense, not, I don't know. He made a ton of plays to contribute to them going 15-0 and being champion and being undefeated that last year. So I'm not trying to hear that he was just handing the ball off and throwing play action. Like that's not the case. He made a lot of plays for Michigan this year and handled himself really well in big moments. And so those things translate as well. And when you're the face of Michigan, that's a big brand. So some of the questions that you get of a smaller school guy, can he handle the spotlight? You don't have those questions with JJ because you know that he's been a model citizen on and off the field and fantastic with the media, fantastic with the fans. And so there's less questions. But unfortunately, the big question of what's it like when we can't rush today?
Yeah.
Can you just drop back and beat them? And I think he can, but it's just a question that teams need to ask.
Yeah, they need to figure that out. All right, last one before we let you go. Jordan Palmer joining us right now. You're a busy man and definitely going to go hit some balls, that nice little simulator behind you when you're done, if you got a little bit of a break. Who's the sleeper in the draft? We've been, we know about Caleb, we know Jayden and Drake and JJ, and we hit on Bo Nix a little bit. Obviously Michael Penix is there as well. I don't know if that would be your sleeper or not, but who's a guy that's somewhere in the either third through sixth round you think could not only make a roster, but could possibly compete during his rookie contract? Because we know how important it is on those rookie contracts to get a young guy that can go out there and ball out. Who's a guy that we're going to be talking about in 2 or 3 years?
I don't know what the response is going to be to this, but I'm going to say Spencer Rattler. I don't train Spencer. Certainly seen him throw it a lot, and seen, and part of it, this next statement is that because this needed to happen, but I've seen more maturity the last few years, more growth and maturity in him than I have in a lot of guys. Now, a lot of guys weren't starting where he was starting from a maturity standpoint, and being on TV in high school and all the stuff. That dude can rip it, man. And he is very confident. He's very well spoken. And I think I went to Manning 2 years ago and he jumps in and everybody in the stands boos. And then at night we're all at the bar talking about it. And none of the guys who were hanging out with Spencer get it because he's cool. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's just a misbrand, miscommunication, disconnect. But playing well in the NFL will solve that right away. But, he's done it at 2 schools. I don't think it's going to be too big for him. Yeah, he got benched for a true freshman who's going number 1 and won a Heisman. I don't know what round Spencer's going to go. I have no idea, but I think he's going to go in there. He's going to pick things up quickly. He's going to look.
I think we lost your audio there real quick, Jordan. Let's see. Can we get you back real quick? Can you hear me real quick?
Yeah.
There we go.
Abe Klubnik.
Oh, man. Hey, there we go. I'm with you. I said that we did a little, T-Bob and I did somewhat of a small overall draft the other day. And that was, obviously I was talking a little bit about quarterbacks, and that was my sleeper too. Just a guy that I thought he balled out this year without any support. Offensive line was horrendous. His top receiver was banged up the entire season. And I thought he just kept taking it on the chin over and over again and just answered the bell every single game and made some really impressive throws.
A little bit, but like I was talking to some guys who were in the portal or going to go in the portal, and I'm like, where are you considering? And multiple people were like, probably not South Carolina, because if Spencer couldn't win there, then I just don't follow the SEC like you, and so I didn't know that, and it was like, well, maybe he played a lot better than people are giving him credit.
Did. He played really, really well. Like I watched pretty much every single one of his games throughout the season, and I thought he was absolutely tremendous on a team that really did not have anywhere near the supporting cast that a lot of these other guys did. So I'm with you. I think he's a guy that could be 3rd, 4th round and compete to possibly be a starting guy year 1, year 2, depending on the situation in front of him. So
yeah, I hope so. I think it'd be a great story.
Yeah. All right. That is Jordan Palmer. Make sure you go follow him on all the socials, and appreciate you jumping on once, first off, and second, hell, let me know those dates in Atlanta. Would love to come out and hang out and learn something myself.
I will. Thanks for having me, man.
Appreciate it, Jordan. All right, we're going to take a quick break with our DraftKings sponsor, and then I will let you know what the plan is for the rest of this week.
The thrill and excitement of March Mania is here, And DraftKings Sportsbook, one of America's top-rated sportsbook apps, is giving new customers a shot to turn $5 into $150 instantly in bonus bets with any college basketball bet. So, you want to ride with the Cinderella attorney, or you want to keep it chalky with the one seeds, everything you need is right there at the tap of a button. And North Carolina listeners, don't forget, DraftKings Sportsbook is now live in your state. So, what are you waiting for? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, use code TBOB, and new customers can bet $5 to get $150 instantly in bonus bets only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code TBOB, TBOB. The crown is yours.
All right, everyone. Appreciate y'all jumping on the Monday. Sorry we were a little bit late. Wanted to make sure that we could get Jordan a part of the show today to break down all the quarterbacks. T-Bob hopefully will be somewhat sober and back on the show tomorrow, live from Mexico. He's just enjoying a little golf today. Can't blame the man for going out there and play a little golf, because I got plenty of golf to do next month. So appreciate you all. Once again, like, subscribe, all that great stuff. We'll be back again tomorrow and then Thursday this week as we continue to cover college football here on Snaps.